Hi everyone, welcome to our Stitchery classes for the year. We're going to begin with the Crewel embroidery class. So in your kit you will have the thread and a little pattern for the sunflower design, fabric, and a needle. I think we're going to pop a needle threader in there for you. So Crewel embroidery is an embroidery. It has a lot of, well, it has the same embroidery stitches as regular embroidery. The difference is we're going to use a wool thread. So the wool thread we're using is a DMC wool thread. It's fairly new on the market and it's a little thicker than the cotton thread, and it comes 2-ply and it's twisted together, so you don't need to separate out any threads like you do in the regular floss. You can just use it right off the skein. When you cut the thread, cut it about an arm's length, or I usually just pull it 1-2 and cut, because wool has a tendency to wear a little bit and it will start fraying. So the more times we go in and out of the fabric and it slides along the needle, it starts to wear. So if we can use just a little bit shorter piece, then we'll have a little bit better result. So we are going to use this wool thread, like from DMC. Like I said, there are a lot of different wool threads out there, and it's just fun to try all the different ones. I think this particular collection of wool thread comes in 60 different colors, and it's just been fun to use, and I've really liked using it. So in your kit, we have the little pattern already printed, and this is on just a little, it's kind of like a little interfacing pellon. It's called Sticky, I'll show you what the package of it, Sticky Fabri Salvi, kind of an interesting name, by Sulky. And it comes in sheets that you can either trace on, or you can put it actually through your printer. So that's what's really nice. If you have any design that you just want to quick put on, then you can do it that way. You can also use a light box. Here's a light box that I use, and a friction pin. The friction pin will disappear with heat, so if you press it or put a blow dryer on it, it will disappear that ink. So that's a good one too. So either way is a good option. This gives it a little stability onto your fabric. So some people like it, some people don't, but it'll be fun to try for this project. So you'll just tear off the back like this and just center it onto your fabric like that. Okay, and then we're ready to stitch. So I have my thread on my needle. The needle you have might be a little, the eye might be a little small. If it is, go to a bigger one. Some people had a hard time threading it, but I got it threaded. So, but if it is, go to a little bit bigger needle. I think the one I put in your kit is a Crewel embroidery number 4. So if you want to go down to a 3 or a 2, that will give you a little bit bigger eye. Just use a needle that you're comfortable with and that you like using. Okay, to begin with, we're going to start with a stem stitch. So in your packet, you'll also have a sheet that kind of shows you these little diagrams, but I just thought it'd be fun to show you how to start. So I've knotted the end, and I'm going to trim off that tail a little bit. You can either pull it from the back and leave the knot on the back, or a lot of stitchers do what's called a waist knot, and they'll come from the front and leave it right there, and then as you stitch, we're going to do a satin stitch, it will cover over that knot, so then your back is pretty clean and then it hides that there. So we are going to outline these petals with what's called a split stitch, and this will give it some definition as we go back and do a satin stitch over it. So we'll begin with that, and then you'll see a little more what I'm talking about when after we get the split stitch done. Okay, so you're going to come up right on the corner of this petal and down about 1/4 inch. Hopefully you can see through my... Okay, and then I'm going to come back up about 1/3 of the way through that stitch, and I'm going to split that thread. So I'm going to come up through the threads, not to one side or the other, but right exactly through the thread, like that. And then I'm going to take another stitch down about 1/4 inch. Okay, and then I'm going to come up through that stitch again, and then we're going to go all the way around this petal. So I'll get all the way around. Pause or keep going. Okay, so I'm using the gold thread. I don't think I mentioned that. So I'm going to outline, if you'll look at this pattern, some of these are kind of more in the foreground and some of the background. The ones more in the foreground, I'm going to do gold. And then the ones in the background, I'm going to do more of the rust color. So you can kind of look at the picture and see how I've done that one. So I'm going to, and then when I come up to this corner, I'm just going to pretend that I'm starting a new line right here. So I'm not necessarily going to split through that last stitch. I'll just come kind of like I'm doing a back stitch and down, and then continue the split stitch down the other side of this petal. So I'm going to continue down this side, and then you can decide whether or not you want to do across the bottom of this petal. We're going to be putting French knots around the edge circle, so it will cover up that edge, so it's not as critical that we do that bottom edge, but if you want to, you can. I'm just going to go to the end of this. So it goes pretty quickly. I'm just going to do one petal right now, but if you want to continue an outline with the split stitch, all of your petals, and then go back and fill in with your satin stitch, you can totally do that. But just so that I can show you, I'm just going to do this one. Okay, here we go. Now I'm going to come up down in the center of the petal at the bottom on this circular line. And then I'm going to go up to the top like that. So I'm covering that split stitch, okay? And then I'm going to come back down right next to where I just stitched, and then up here right next to where I stitched. So we're going to just, those stitches are just going to lay right next, those yarns right next to each other. And this is called the satin stitch. And then we're just going to follow that stem stitch that we did just right along the edge. Just put my needle right along the edge of those stitches. And I'm going to fill in this side, and then I'll go back and fill in the other side. Okay, so continue going, continue on this side. I'm going to show you one that I have in progress here. I can pick it up. So you can see I filled in this petal, and I've been filling in that petal. So continue filling, do the stem stitch around on these back ones that will be the rust color in the same way. And once you start filling in ones that go next to each other, it's going to look really nice. Yeah, here's another example. It just all comes together. Okay, so now we're going to focus on this center part right here. And these are the French knots. So there's a ton of French knots really close together. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So you can see I've started a little bit. When I get all my petals satin stitched and all done, oh, actually, let me go back just a little bit. If you look at the gold petals, they have a little bit of the rust in them. I just did some stitches just to give a little bit of dimension. So a lot of times in crewel embroidery, there's a lot of shading and colors, and we're just doing kind of a basic beginner stitch here and just adding those little stitches. So I did a longer one and then 2 on each side a little bit shorter and then 2 more on a little bit shorter just for the center. And you can do it however you want there. So yeah, do that. I got a little bit ahead of myself. Also do the your leaves and your stem with the same technique as you did your petals. So split stitch around and then add the satin stitch. If you can see on this example, I've done the satin stitch to the middle and came out just to give that leaf a little dimension. So you can do it that way or just use one stitch across, however you want to do it. But anyway, it was kind of fun to just add that little dimension on those leaves. But that will be done exactly the same as the petals that we did in the green. Okay, back to the French knot. So I'm going to knot it, and you can see I've done a couple. This is an example I used yesterday. Knot it and then come up, and then I'm going to wrap my needle 1, 2, 3 times, and then I'm going to go back down close to where I came up, but not in the same hole. If you go down the same hole, then you're going to lose your French knot. It'll just kind of disappear. Okay, and then I'm going to hold with my thumb, with my opposite hand that I'm holding my needle, and pull my needle through. This thread got a little knot in it. I should have cut it off. Okay, and then when you get close, let go, and then that makes your little knot. Okay, let's do it again. I'm going to come up fairly close. Okay, wrap 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And then back down, holding on to the thread closest to where the knot's going to be. And then I'm going to pull my needle through. Whoops, it broke because I had a knot. We might have to, let me fix that real quick. Okay. Okay, come up with your needle fairly close to the one before. And you'll get the knack of how close you need to be as you do a few. And if you are a little far away and you need to go back in between and do another one, that's perfectly fine. You can just go add another one if you feel like it needs to be a little closer together. You can just totally add another one. So wrap 1, 2, 3 and down. When I did the sample here, I did French knots all around the circle. So I did all the French knots, filled, and then I started filling in, circling in, and then I started adding the lighter, this lighter brown color in the center. So it just works really nice to just get that edge done and then just continue going in. I went, I don't know, 4 or 5 rows in and then switched off to the lighter for the very center of the sunflower. And then I used, if you're wanting to put it in a frame, each project of the series we're going to do just a little bit different project. This one we're going to do, well, I did. You can do whatever you want to do with your sunflower. Put it in this frame. I want to show you how I mounted it. So I took the glass out of the frame, and I'm not using the glass, but I mounted this onto, it's called sticky back board. I don't know the exact name, but if you Google it online, just like sticky board for cross stitch or embroidery or that type of thing. And so it's sticky, and you can put your fabric and your design on here and then trim it and then just set it back into your, so it makes it really easy. There's other ways you can pull it around just a cardboard piece and stitch it, pull stitches, pull the fabric, and but this just makes it really simple. The kind I bought said it was archival and acid free, so you should be good to go to use something like this. So this is a 5x7 frame, which fits pretty well in. And anyway, I think it's a super fun project for fall. And I've loved doing the Crewel embroidery, and I hope you do too. And we will see you next time.